Hey everyone, my name is Rick Guttersohn. I'm a social worker. I'm a grief and loss educator, consultant. My goal in making this video today is just to equip you who are watching this video to give you some practical tools to process your emotions. And that sounds really huggy and touchy-feely, but really, emotions are a really tricky and complicated thing. And unless you went to school to understand them, or maybe went through counseling or therapy or support groups to really unpack your own emotions, often a lot of us don't have a lot of understanding about what we're feeling and what to do with those feelings. And in some cases, we're actually taught that emotions are bad, or emotions make you weak, or maybe that emotions can't be trusted. And my hope in making this video is that you can debunk some of those myths or some of those lies about what emotions have or about what emotions are, and in order to discover some truth that can really help us process and get in touch with what's going on inside of us so that we can experience peace in the midst of struggle, in the midst of adversity or challenges or loss. And so this video is going to give you 5 basic tools that you can use in order to process your emotions and experience peace. The first one that we need to focus on is just hitting the pause button. We need to pause. And really, truthfully, one of the challenges that we have is, in my time working with people who've experienced grief after loss, I've seen kind of 2 categories of people. The first one are the feelers, which is myself. The ones that don't have a problem feeling emotions. It's how do you control those emotions? What do you do with those emotions? And sometimes for feelers, the struggle is actually to pause the emotion themselves in order to kind of gain some clarity and gain some wisdom and thought in the midst of those emotions, because they can be so overwhelming. The second category of people is the doers. When you feel an emotion, you put yourself into busy mode or to action mode to do something to stay busy so that you don't have to feel those emotions, or so that you are unaware that you're even feeling anything. So whether you're a feeler or a doer, the first step is to hit the pause button. So for the feelers, you might need to pause the emotion. Give yourself just a moment to step outside of that situation, step outside that emotion, and just pause. But for you doers, the challenge is you need to pause your schedule, pause your activities, and just create space that's empty and see what rises to the top, to see what kind of feelings surface. The second step is to name it. As you're feeling these things that come to the surface, we have to give them a name if we're really to understand that and to process that. So as you're pausing, what comes to the surface? Maybe the emotion that surfaces to the top for you is anger. Maybe it's sadness. Maybe it's fear or anxiety in the midst of everything that's happening around us. It might be guilt or shame. So many of the emotions that we're experiencing are connected with loss. There's all kinds of losses that we're experiencing right now. It's not just grieving after a death. There's also types of losses that we might be experiencing, like a loss of financial security or a loss of just structure and routine. The loss of a significant event, like a wedding or a birthday, a graduation. There's all kinds of losses that are surrounding us right now, and so many of the emotions that we're feeling now are connected to loss. The really important thing that you have to remember is that grief is a response to loss and not just to death. And grief isn't just sadness or tears. Grief is connected to every kind of emotion that we can feel, and sometimes all at once. There's a great tool called the feelings wheel that is really helpful in getting in touch with your feelings, both in the simplest format, like an anger or a sadness, but also kind of doing a deeper dive into the emotion, like understanding frustration or feelings of emptiness and lack of purpose. Those emotions can be hard to identify, especially if we don't have a lot of experience with emotions. And so that tool is an incredible tool to help you both become aware of what you're feeling and giving it a name, but also going into our third point, which is you have to understand the emotion. So where is this emotion coming from? The key question in that is, why am I feeling this way? Why is this emotion even taking place? Emotions don't just happen. There's a cause to them. And so if you're feeling angry, what is causing that anger? Is it because something happened to you? Is it because of a situation or a person that you have a direct form of anger with? Or maybe it's something on a deeper level, like a lack of control or a type of loss that you've experienced. And specifically with anger, anger is a secondary emotion. So something else leads to the anger. It could be fear. It could be hurt. It could be frustration. So understanding the reason behind the emotion is really, really vital. And so by using this tool, the feelings wheel, you're able to really start to unpack what you're feeling in order to process it. The fourth step is vital, and we have to express it. The emotions that we're experiencing on the inside have to come out. They have to be acted on. They have to be expressed, but not in a way that does harm to others or ourselves, not in a way that makes you have to pick up the phone and apologize, but in a way that is healthy, that releases it from us. And so we have to express our emotions. It's not enough to say, oh, I seem to be angry or I seem to be sad. Be sad. Be angry. Express that emotion, but in a healthy, safe, productive way. Physical activity for anger is huge. Going for a run or a jog, even something like a punching bag or one of those Nerf bats that you can get as a child can be incredibly healthy ways to physically release your anger. But I want to talk about one that might be harder to express, which is sadness and tears. We're so often taught that our tears make us weak and that crying is not okay. Don't cry. How many people grew up believing something about crying because they were taught it at a young age? I want to tell you that crying is healing. Expressing tears is healing. Tears, when you look at them under a microscope, have different makeup. So when you look at tears from grief and tears of loss versus tears from cutting an onion or tears of joy or even a tear from being poked in the eye, they physically look different under a microscope. The thing that's fascinating about that is the tears of grief actually release toxins from your body. So if you've experienced a loss or if you've experienced pain or hurt and you cry, that's your body's way of trying to help you heal. And so every time you deny the tears or every time you try to suppress them, you're actually halting your body's ability to create healing for yourself. Tears don't just need to be expressed. Tears need to be seen by somebody else because tears are an invitation to be joined. Tears are a very vulnerable expression of emotion, but they're also one of the most powerful forms of connection. And so by crying or expressing your tears, it allows other people a chance to connect with you. It's okay to pick up the phone and talk to somebody else. It's okay to do a FaceTime call or a Zoom chat because, again, the goal is to process this so that you can experience peace. The last thing that we have to do is we have to release them. Releasing our emotions is very different for the type of emotion, right? So if we're feeling afraid, it's not just enough to express that fear, but it's also about how do I let go of this fear? And so by processing that emotion, getting it out of you, it creates space for truth. It creates space for logic. And it allows you to kind of gain a sense of composure. I don't have control over things out in the world, but I do have a control over how I respond to it. So what are some things that I can do to maybe mitigate that fear or anxiety? Let's look at another emotion. Let's look at anger or guilt. Because in addition to releasing that emotion, it often comes connected with forgiveness. Is there somebody that's caused you pain, that's created the anger? Or is there something that you've done that's created the guilt or the shame feeling? You have to forgive them or yourself in order to continue healing and experience peace. And that's hard for everybody because based on what's happened, sometimes it's very difficult and seemingly impossible to find forgiveness. And that takes time. It's not something you can do just by watching a quick video here. But at the same time, know that experiencing peace, part of that journey is releasing that anger. And by releasing the anger or the guilt, it's about forgiving. So just kind of a recap here. If you are struggling with your emotions, either in understanding what you're feeling or you're feeling so much that it's hard to process, there are 5 things that you can do. The first thing is hit the pause button. The second thing that you have to do is give it a name. Name the emotion or the emotions that you're feeling. The third thing that you can do is to understand the emotion. Where did it come from? Why am I feeling this way? The fourth thing that you can do is to express that emotion. Get it out of you. Journal, write, share it with somebody, a physical activity, something like that. And then the last thing that you need to do is to release it. Because if you release it, it creates space for something new. And that something new for you is peace. It creates space for peace. It creates space for gratitude, for acceptance, things that you can do that are in your control. We can't control the outside world, but we can pause and reflect on things that we're grateful for. We can hit the pause button and release the frustration and the anger and reflect on something that fills our heart with love or with joy or with peace. And so by releasing it, you're creating space for something new. And that is my goal for you. That something new is peace. I want you to experience peace in the midst of this pandemic.